Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Gentleman's Hour. And we have Mark Kerr, Max Zulek, and myself, Sul. And we're going to be having a little bit of a conversation today about being a gentleman in the world. And we've got a very special guest, Mr. Max Zulek. So thanks for coming, Max.
Thanks for inviting me. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah.
The Gentleman's Lounge. Need a little whiskey, a little cigar,
Yeah. We've got
The
to
stereo.
go with that, Mark.
What's that?
We need to have one of those backgrounds, those Zoom backgrounds with all the bottles of whiskey,
Yes, we do. We do.
Or a real one.
Exactly.
Mm,
So,
exactly.
Max, would you tell us just introduce yourself a little bit and maybe how you came to the tools of, access consciousness and also, maybe just start there and we will ask you some more questions.
Cool, thank you. Interestingly enough, since we're talking about Gentlemen's Club, before Access, I did a lot of men's groups and things like that, and even a thing called The Joining, which was a festival once a year on the Sunshine Coast here, like a men's and women's festival. There was different workshops and events where you could inner work by different presenters and so forth. You could choose what you wanted to do. So even before Access, I was sort of always looking and seeking and basically trying to find out what else is possible. I didn't feel like I fit in anywhere, not as a man, not as a person or anything. So I was always looking for something different. And I studied naturopathy. I did a trade, studied as a fitter and turner apprenticeship. I did, and then after the naturopathy as well, I was obviously still looking, and I found Access 2 years after that, and that was sort of the thing. After 10 years of looking at all sorts of different things, the thing that gave me the most freedom with the most ease. It was I heard things that I'd never heard before, and it wasn't like I heard things that sounded amazing, but then there was still a bit of a kink, like something was weird or off or not true. It was sort of oh, it's about my choice. I've got choice. No one ever mentioned that before, choice. What would you like to choose? And I was like, and today I'm still sitting around going, but I know that I have a choice now, so it's a really different, and it's sort of I've made a lot more choices now that I would say are my choices, as opposed to being in reaction to, or what I learned from my parents and what I thought I should do and all that sort of stuff. So I've made a lot more of my choices, and then it opens up a whole other set of choices. So it's not choice you never finish. And that's why I'm saying I'm still sitting here being what would I like to choose now?
That's it.
So yeah, always been seeking and interested in the men's stuff too. What does it mean to be a man for me? And even noticing the difference of being with other men like you guys. I just saw you on the weekend. This is such a different energy than being with my wife, for example, who I really love being around and love and so forth. But it's just such a different energy that we can have being together versus being around women and such.
Yeah.
So it's not trying to define it necessarily, but it's just recognizing it's different and what can we contribute to each other without having to define it.
One thing that I've really noticed as well about you, Max, is that you seem to have from when I first met you, I guess, to now, it's you seem so much more comfortable in your skin as who you are. And would you be able to maybe talk to some of the things that you sort of used or have implemented in your life to create that sort of ease with being you?
Yeah, I would say when I first met you, I was actively trying to jump out of my skin. Just to give people a sense of where I was at. I was I didn't feel comfortable being me at all. I was always looking for how to be right, how to say the right thing, be the right way. You know, that was my particular thing. I was always like trying to get it right. I was like deer in the headlights, especially in social situations, being around other people. So some of the things since then that have really helped me is, I mean, the access tools, things like interesting point of view. Like whenever I notice, because I'm a real head tripper, I can I can think things to a degree. But the interesting thing now is recognizing too, and like when you said that, me too, Saul. I mean, I wouldn't see you as a head tripper at all. I would see you as someone who's aware as fucking like super aware of other people's heads. And I've started recognizing that about myself too. It's like a lot of the thoughts that go through my head and a lot of the activation in my head is actually not mine. And that's one of the access tools is like, who does this belong to? And that's been a huge gift. And I use that constantly still. Well, and I'm sure I will continue to use it because when I have stuff going through my head and I'm like feeling all twisted up about it, when I ask that question, okay, who does this actually belong to? I can, when it creates more space and I like the thoughts kind of just like ease off, for me, that's like a signal of, oh, it actually doesn't belong to me. So me sort of exacerbating those by thinking it's me and there's something wrong with me or there's like a problem or whatever, just makes things worse. And it's like perpetrating the lie, continuing the lie. And when I actually find out what I'm aware of, it creates so much more lightness in my universe. And then it gives me so much more ease of like, okay, what would I like to choose now? Or what's next, you know, without having it be such a lying lie. So interesting point of view.
Yeah.
Just being like interesting point of view. I have this point of view. If I'm noticing I have a fixed point of view, or if someone's talking to me and they have a fixed point of view, interesting point of view, they have a point of view, that tends to like really create more ease. And who does it belong to is a massive one. Really big.
Yeah, I love that. And, you know, I think as well, it's funny because, you know, Silas, my son, you know, just went to school today and we've been sort of preparing him for like a month and, you know, asking him about all of these things that he's like, I don't want to go and do this. And, you know, asking him, well, does this belong to you? Or like, are you being aware of all the other kids as well that are freaking out about, you know, going to school for the first day? And he would like, you know, refuse to like acknowledge that at all. Not that I've ever done that, but like, you know, it has to be his, you know, he's like, it can't not be mine. But, you know, like, you know, Tiff had a conversation with him like this morning before we went to school and was like actually just talking about some of the great things that she experienced actually going to school. And then like his whole point of view changed and he started to look at, oh, what actually might be possible here, you know, and started to look at all the fun things that he could get to do. And, you know, there's been once or twice when he's gone, okay, I don't think it's mine. I think I'm just being aware. But yeah, it's that interesting thing of, I guess we're so aware of so much and we just think it can't possibly not be mine. But
Totally.
what if it was? Like, you know, what's the worst thing that could happen if you actually started to, like Max was saying, do these tools of who does this belong to and an interesting point of view for every point of view that shows up.
And for me, really, it was like, if you asked me when I was younger, like, is this yours? I probably very likely would have responded like Silas, or like my kids do sometimes as well. But to me, it got to a point where it just got so fucking painful of like this intensity of these thoughts and these different things that like I've noticed for years and years. And then when I actually considered of, okay, what if this actually isn't mine? And like it loosened off, like when I used the tool and then it like changed, it didn't necessarily completely go away, or, you know, like the clouds didn't part and the rainbow came out, or we had flashing lights over here or anything. It wasn't like that necessarily. But what happened to me is like, it just went, woof. I had more space. And for me, that was really enough to go, okay, like what if I actually looked at this more for myself? What if I was willing to know what I know here and not sort of like deny what I was aware of? And if I gave these tools a chance, and it continues to open up so much more space and possibilities.
Yeah. And I know, like you mentioned, Max, that you did an apprenticeship, and I know, you know, Mark has done some trade work as well. And I know I've spoken to you both about this, and just kind of going, hang on a second, I know I'm pretty different here, because things show up very differently for me. So it's like, can you talk to a little bit as well? Because, like, you know, there might be, for example, some guys watching that are like, I know I'm a little bit different, but I have no idea what to do with it, or where to go, or, you know, like what to say, or how to even start to approach this. So, like, you know, sort of like, where did you guys start with this journey into exploring something different and the difference of you?
I'd love to hear from you first, Mark.
Well, thank you, Max. Look, when we decided we were going to do something here tonight, and it was all pretty ad lib, and Saul told us we were going live 10 minutes before we went live, and all that type of stuff. Look, Max has said, and if I get a little bit off track here, pull me up or whatever. Max mentioned and saw that conversation, so many aspects of, I think, stuff I've got going on now. Like, I've been involved with Access for probably maybe about 5 years or something like that. And I thought I was getting to a place where you sort of had a bit of an idea. I'm sort of getting these tools and stuff's happening. And COVID has created so many great things for me. And in that same sentence, it's also created, well, COVID hasn't created this, but I'm at that place again where it's like, I don't know any of this. You know, I thought I knew this. I thought I was moving in this direction, and things Max was saying then about choice, it just kept pinging with me that these tools aren't something which you go to a couple of classes and you just learn, and as Max said, the rainbow appears and everyone's covered in pixie dust, and it's great.
If only.
Their choices.
If only.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I would have hung around if that was actually the case anyway.
Come on. These it's a continual, you know, whether it's journey which you've got to keep choosing and making these new choices for what it is you actually want your life to look like and how you want to be. And I know that word fear is the best thing to use, but I'm going to use it anyway. How you do with stuff and just getting on with it, because there's so many things which come up all the time, and we create our own reality, you know, by your point of view and that type of thing. So I'm totally off track here, and this little chat's been great because Saul's been the talkative one, which didn't always used to happen. So it's been a real bit of a role reverse and stuff. And look, going back to your question, the long way around, I think everyone's got that little bit of, everyone has that place and they can just drop the barriers, you know, if it's let their guard down and actually just be them for a little while. And that can come up even when you're around other guys. And I always found over the years, it only takes one guy to do that, to be an allowance of someone else, whether they've got stuff going on or they're normally not the nicest person to be around. That other person to actually pick up on that and realise that it's whatever it looks like to be them, that's okay, because you're going to come across people who are just in allowance of that and happy for you to be who you are. And then, I don't know, when the barriers come down that little bit, it's a way of going to follow the energy of that, I guess. I'm pretty confused on what I'm saying now as well, but
Well, I
this
think
has been
Mark,
great.
one of the things that's funny though about you is because you often go like you often say, oh, I don't really know what's going on, but there is like there is an embodiment of the tools and everything that you be that is like just so different. And like I would say there's not actually many men that I know that that actually have that. So I'd say it's probably one of those things where you can't see it because you're being it. But
And
yeah,
and that sentence, the biggest head fucks to me, because it does come up so much. And guess what? I'm trying to work out what that is actually about, and it's not happening.
yeah.
But you're just being it.
But I'll second what Saul said as well. Like, I really love being around Mark because it's just so easy to be around him, because he doesn't like have any judgments going on about you or what's going on. He's like what you would call like an easygoing guy, but not from being like vacant. Like he's there and present. He's funny. He's engaging. He's like
Present, yeah.
really easy and fun to be around. And that's him being him, And it doesn't mean he's not aware of stuff or like uncomfortable or anything like that, but he's willing to show up. And I think that's a real key and a gift.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think the bond, guys, gentlemen, fellas, blokes, whatever it is, is something which I actually underestimated as well. Growing up, and a lot of my life, I had a really close bunch of mates who we did hang out a lot, did a lot of, did heaps of stuff together, had so many great adventures and that sort of thing. And I'd probably say over the last 6-7 years, there's still have great guys, but I know I've drifted from that. And when we used to be able to travel, I'd see you guys sometimes 3 weekends a month in a different world. And with COVID coming and not having that bond or that interaction with other guys, there's something which has really pinged with me, and probably only the last month or so is something which I don't know if it's for everyone, because as much as we do enjoy our own time, because that is something else which has become overly abundant in my life that I require that. But actually having the interaction with other guys from whatever walk of life they come from actually is such a contribution to me. And yeah, I don't know my point behind this, but it was just something which has really become aware to me that it's really required. And sometimes when we drift away from maybe that friendship hub or whatever it may be, and isolate yourself or separate because you think it's not you anymore, it's I don't know, it doesn't create a lot. And if this is just from my experience, so I don't know, someone jump in. I'm thinking too much now.
Well, I'd love to add something to that actually. Because I used to, like, even when I was doing the men's groups and stuff like that, pardon me. This was before Access, obviously. Like, I wasn't acknowledging rather of what I was aware of, and that made it more difficult to be around other people, because a lot of people that you tend to meet, man, woman, whatever, like they have a lot of projections and a lot of expectations. Like they project a lot at you and like how they need the relationship to be. Like my mother, for example, is like one of the worst, like the projections of what she needs me to be. And because I was a bit of a mummy's boy growing up, I guess, and I never realized it. I just thought that was like normal for my life, like being like close with my mum. But it's something that she created, because she didn't get along with my father very well, and they divorced 10 years ago and whatever. And she always used me as like a bit of a primary relationship, and I didn't know that growing up. I only realized that later, and then I was sort of like, hang on a second, like what actually works for me here? And there was a lot of this sort of like real manipulation into sort of closeness, which was not awesome at all. And being able to acknowledge that, like when I'm around other people and what their agendas are and so forth, has really helped me to be interesting point of view about their agenda, like to not actually feel like I have to fulfill that need for them. And also being aware of, okay, is this mine or is it somebody else's? And that's made that being around other people so much easier for me without having to try and separate to like have myself, which is how I used to respond a lot. Is I used to try and separate, like I'd go into judgment and definition of myself and them and create some sort of artificial structure so I would feel like I had part of myself or something. So one of the gifts of having the tools and using them is I have like less separation with people no matter what their point of view is. And I can also choose to walk away. I don't feel like I have to be around people to make them feel more comfortable, you know?
Yeah, I love that. And it's kind of strange, but dawning on me in a really different way how there's something that's really different about guys or men or gentlemen, whatever you want to call it. But it's like even just the conversation that we're having now, I don't not quite sure how to describe this, but it's almost like individually there is a subtlety of sort of like a power and a potency that we have available. But I don't think guys very often come together and be that, like it's not something that a lot of it's not something that's ever really been kind of like encouraged or explored, like in my life anyway. And so I'm really actually wondering as well, like, I wonder what that is that we also all have, that when we're also like, not functioning from that separation and, like contributing to each other and stuff, like what could be actually available for like the creation of a different possibility with, us being willing to be that, not just for ourselves or for our partners, but like, like what can we be in the world that could create something really different?
Totally. Yeah. I want to mention something else too, because when I was doing the men's groups, there was a lot of, I guess there was a lot of definition around what a man is. And like, there was a lot of sort of an energy of should, like it wasn't really spoken around, but like what it is to be a man. And that's what's sort of acceptable to be in those groups. And I mean, we see that a lot around anyways. It's like to be a man means this and this and this and this. But I mean, we know a bunch of people that are gay and that are like, and that we're friends with as well, that don't fit into the category of what this reality says is a man. And I still consider them like they're men, and they have very different preferences and very different choices. And I sort of find out things about me more all the time from including like the infinitely diverse nature of men, or like what men can choose and be, and it's such a gift by not trying to put this masculine slant on it, like this requirement of this masculine slant that this reality tends to do. Like we can basically choose and find out for ourselves what actually works and include everybody else.
Exactly. It's funny you bring that up, Max, because there's a number of groups which, I've been part of at different times too, and they're run by some amazing guys who are trying to, create a place and a space for guys to be themselves. But there's also this edge to it, and this is just my point of view. When you bring up the masculine thing, it's like, okay, we need a place for men to be comfortable around men, but everything's got to be masculine. And then I'm like,
yeah.
This is a place where I actually get a little bit confused with it, because, like I said, they're doing amazing work and have a real desire to change things and a caringness towards men. And we hear about all these suicide rates, which are horrible, and what can we do to change this? But then as soon as I know it's a men's group. Everyone there's got a dick, but then it almost feels like that separation thing where that everything has to be masculine. And like you said before, we got a lot of friends who are gay, and to me, some of them are a bit masculine, some are very, some aren't at all. And to me, that we've just excluded that whole area of men who were probably more confused than a lot of heterosexual men growing up anyway. And this judgment still carries on that you're a man, but if you're not being masculine, you're not. And I'm a heterosexual man, and I'm confused about these groups a little bit in that, what is it actually creating? And like I said, I know it comes from a space of genuine caring to make change and create more for guys, but it's still a little bit
narrow.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that definitely pops for me with that is like I never was taught how to receive from a man. Like I had no idea of what that is. Like, having a conversation with someone, it always seemed like it was just this, that sort of peripheral, like, the bits that you put on the outside, but never actually truly getting to know like what's going on for another man, or,
Exactly.
like having a conversation that just goes past some of that stuff. But definitely like with you guys, I've been able to have that. And so like Max was saying, like as you start to include more, you kind of those things, you also are including those conversations and that vulnerability that lead to kind of more awareness of what it is to be a man and to receive a man and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, that lack of being able to, and like learning, like you said, Saul, of receiving from men as I was growing up. Like I ended up doing martial arts, and it's not until years afterwards, like I did it really intensely for like 4 years, like Muay Thai kickboxing and like the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is a lot of like the grappling, and I only realized years after that, and because I was part of a club as well, where like we're all pretty close, but it's only as close as we were willing and able to get as men, but there was, most of the guys that were there were basically to try and have more of an intimate bond. And I'm not saying a sexual bond, but actually be closer to men, experience that sort of the roughness, but also the body closeness. And there's like some sense of intimacy. And we did that through martial arts, because that was the only sort of appropriate way, because you had to fight. The only way you can really be close to a man is if you're fighting. Like you see like in sports matches and stuff, they kiss and hug each other afterwards. Or boxing matches, even, they're beating the shit out of each other like 1 minute, and next minute they're like elated and hugging each other, and that's appropriate for some weird fucking reason. Like that closeness is really, and an intimacy between men is just not socially appropriate, which is insane. Like you can't receive sexual energy from another man, which has nothing to do with copulation or kissing or anything like that, but just when you have your barriers fully down and you're being you, there's like naturally a sexual energy. It's like aliveness, but it's so put into this category of sex, like it has to lead to sex. And if it's, you got to be careful, you don't want to cross that barrier. And like everyone's so fucking confused. All the men are so confused because they think then they want to have sex because that's what it means if they're too close. But it doesn't mean that at all. We can actually have our barriers down with each other, and it doesn't have to lead to sex and copulation. Or it could, but people are just so confused because like they've never been willing to go there, right? And other men will just like put their barriers up straight away, and then everyone's like, too close. Oh yeah, it should be right, mate. It's like, it's nuts.
Yeah.
But one other thing which is interesting, like traveling around, and you guys might have seen this too, like in India or in Bali, for example, you see guys walking down the street holding hands.
Yeah.
Like grown men, and they'll be walking down the street just holding hands because they're actually willing to have a degree of intimacy that in Western culture is like really taboo. Like even gay men feel awkward walking down the street holding hands, because it's like not socially acceptable. So there's these real cultural differences and barriers which are just bizarre. And what else is possible?
You know, guys, we've already been talking for half an hour. And I actually really want to keep going. But I've also scheduled something else, so I do have to jump off now. But can we have a part 2 with you, Max? Because like I feel like we're just getting started, and I'd really love to like have more of this conversation with you both.
We'd like to hold hands with
Sounds
you.
amazing.
Yeah.
I'd love to hold hands with you guys.
All right. Yeah. Cool. So I apologize. I have to cut it a little bit short, but
No, thank you.
Well, this is also something, if you're watching, you know, I know there's lots of you and who've been commenting and everything, so thank you so much. And we will be doing this more often, and yes, we're going to have Max back. So yeah, we'll be back sometime in the future. We'll let you know. Not sure right now when it will be, but thank you so much, Max.
Definitely no form or structure to this. Okay.
We're doing it.
Thank you guys. Really appreciate it.
Thank you guys. Have a good night.
Thank you so much. Bye, guys.